Today we're going to make the viewfinder that you will be using in the completion of your first project, Formal Characteristics in Beginning Design. You can see the tools in front of you here that you'll need to complete the project, and I'll be providing you with a 7 by 7 inch piece of poster board with which you're going to create your viewfinder. So the first thing, to clear all that out of the way, is to set this paper up taped to your table in such a way that it's square with the T-square. And so, moving my camera a little bit, you can see T-squares are designed to slide on one edge of the table you're working on. And so with this side of it nice and flush up against the table, I want to arrange the paper so that I can see that the edge of the paper is right in line with the T-square. Notice that I'm taping it down pretty close to the edge of the table where the head of the T-square is riding. That's going to make it a little easier for me to hold the T-square firmly in place, and that'll prevent me from having any crooked lines. I'm going to tape all 4 corners. Don't go cheap with the tape. Tape is not expensive, okay? 4 corners. That's going to hold it in place. Now for making your lines, you should be using the sharpest pencil, the hardest lead that you have in your kit, which for you is the 2H. You can use a regular number 2 pencil today, that's fine. But the point to the 2H for drafting tools is that it makes a very light mark, and so you don't wind up with needless amounts of extra soft graphite smudging your project. For my part, I'm going to use a softer lead pencil so that the lines I make are easy for you to see in the video. So don't mistake the hard, dark lines that I'm drawing for the way that you should be in the habit of making lines. Once you have your paper centered using the T-square, you're going to set the T-square for aside for a moment. You won't be using it. You'll be using your ruler, and we will talk about the finer points of using a ruler in class. But to make a 6 by 6 inch square hole that's perfectly centered, what we need to do is measure in 1/2 inch from each side. I'm going to make these marks nice and dark so you can see them. And when I'm measuring like this, I don't want to have the ruler tilted because that is going to create a different distance than if it's aligned with the edge of the paper. So for my mark on the right-hand side, in other words, I'm going to line up that 0 mark right there very carefully and make my mark for 1/2 inch in. I've got that. Now I need the top and the bottom. Make sure you're looking right over the top. Whoops. That was 1 inch. 1/2 inch in. 1/2 inch in. So, look up close at what we've got here. I'm going to tip my camera. Yes, I am. All right. So you should have some sort of line 1/2 inch up or inward from each edge. Now the T-square is going to do the rest of the work for you. You can set your ruler aside and bring Mr. T-square back into the scene. I just need for the bottom line to line up my pencil so that it's definitely going to hit the mark that I just drew. Make sure the T-square is snug against the edge of the table and draw my line. Again, I'm drawing this line super dark so that y'all will be able to see it. You do not need to draw it so it can be read from home up. You just need to be able to see it from where you're sitting. And again, with the T-square is for drawing horizontal lines, right? So just the top and the bottom in this case. I can use the bottom of the T-square to make it easier for you to see where I am drawing that line. And don't worry if you go over the edge, it really doesn't matter. We just want 2 lines that are nice and parallel with the outer edge of the paper. And you can see that I have brilliantly achieved that. Now, for verticals, you use your triangle. This is why we had you get the right triangle. I can slide the T-square anywhere so long as it's flat on the side of the table. I'm going to place the triangle so it's sitting on top of the T-square. And you can see it'll slide nice and smoothly here, and I can align it with my mark. I'm going to kind of keep pressure on the T-square using the heel of my hand, and I'm going to hold that triangle in place with a little bit of inward pressure, right? So I'm holding it tight against the T-square, but also some downward pressure so that it doesn't slide sideways when I'm making my mark. I'm going to get my pencil in place right over the mark, and then when everything's square, I'm going to go ahead and make that line. And I'm going to repeat that process for the left-hand margin. It takes a little practice, right? Holding the T-square flush against the table can be a little tricky. And then adding to that, being responsible for this, it takes some time. Practice with it. Don't beat yourself up. So now I've got my 6 by 6 inch area ready to cut out. So this is 6 inches. And that is 6 inches. If you are unsure, double check it before you start cutting. There's no reason to spend all this careful time cutting if the measurements are wrong. You know that saying, measure twice, cut once. So if I lay my ruler down right here, if my math was right, if my marks were right, I should have exactly 6 inches from here to here. And as long as I manage to hold my T-square and triangle tight in place, it should be exactly 6 inches from here to here as well. So just take a minute before you cut and check that all of your dimensions are correct. If they're wrong, maybe you just flip this over and measure again on the back side of things. Now, do not cut on the tabletop. This is my home kitchen table. I don't think I want to make big marks with the X-Acto knife in there. But you know what? Our tables in the classroom don't want to be cut either. We no longer need it to be taped down because we are done with the T-square. And so you can bring your blue cutting mat into play. My home cutting mat is not blue, but I think you get the idea. And so now we just need to cut out that middle area. Notice how I drew on it with reckless abandon? That's because I'm not going to use that. The part I need to keep for the project is that outer part. So cutting, a good practice with cutting is to put the ruler over the thing that you want to keep, because if my knife slips, it won't matter. And the way to hold it is to put a thumb down kind of low near the end of the cut and a finger up pretty high near the start of the cut and push downward, not pushing this way, not forward. You may have to stand up to cut effectively while you're working in this class. I do. Sitting down, you're at a bad angle. Now, cutting with the knife, you want the blade to follow right along the side of your ruler. You don't want to try to tuck it under the edge of the ruler. Let that thing draw right on down parallel to the ruler. Stop before you cross over here. Start here, not here. And you should have a nice little cut. Rotate it. And I'm going to do these from different angles so that maybe in the video you'll be able to see better the angle the knife is supposed to be at. How about that? All right. So I'm placing this so that the blade is in line. It's not way up high. It's kind of, I guess, about halfway between straight up and down and laid down flat. And then I'm just drawing it right along. And I'm going to take as many cuts as I need to go through that poster board. As your blade dulls, it's going to take more cuts, but medium pressure repeated cuts is always the best method for getting a nice clean cut on your paper. And so I will rotate again. Got that all lined up, and this might be the best angle of view for you to see how the blade is. So often I see people cutting like this. That's wrong. You don't need the blade to go under the ruler. You need the ruler's edge to stop the blade so that it's exactly lined up with the cut you intend to make, or, you know, right on the line. So try to hold it exactly even so the line of this metal is lined up with this metal. One more cut to go. Let's try this angle. You guys do not need to be moving it to different angles. I'm just trying to give you the best angle of view in one video, and I don't know which one of these is going to give you the best angle of view. Okay. So this piece you're just going to discard in the recycle bin. This little guy is what your goal was for today, to make that. And so once again, you could check the measurements, maybe you fine-tune looking at where your lines were and make sure your cut stayed right on. But that's it. And this tool, whoops, the goal with this is that you'll be able to align it over the blank poster board that you're working to make your design on. And so when that's registered, you know, aligned with the edges, now you've automatically got this sort of mat that will allow you to see where the borders are as you arrange the black paper strips. It's not, you're not going to make any more of these. Once you've made one, that's it. You're going to reuse it on each study that you create during the completion of the project.